yarn lovers, it's Gary and I'm coming to you from my happy place, the Yarn Corner here on Vancouver Island in Canada. So welcome. Today is Saturday, September the 10th, 2022, and this is video 154. How are you all doing? I hope you're being well. I've got a jam-packed video on things that I've purchased, some makes. I want to talk to you about a special place that me and my folks visited when they were here in Canada. They've since gone back to Australia. I believe it's been 3 weeks that they've been back at home, but I have so many wonderful excursions that me and my folks did. I'm going to cut them up into series of different videos. I'll put them towards the end of the episodes that I'm talking about with my crafty stuff. So if you want to stick around and learn a little bit more about the city that I'm featuring in this episode, it is Victoria, and Victoria is the capital city of British Columbia, which is my province that I live in up here in Canada. And we explored a few things down there, the Butchart Gardens, and I'm going to be showing wonderful clips of the gardens and the grounds at the end of the video. So I hope that you'll stick around and enjoy those clips. So you might have noticed here that Hank, my model, is wearing my festive dragon wrap, and I don't have a pattern for it yet. I just created it out of my head, and I'm still yet to figure out the calculations and write all of the notes down on the instructions. So my learn here was basically leveling out the valleys of the chevron part, which I began the piece at the bottom and worked my way up to the top. And where I discover how to kind of calculate the leveling out of the valleys, I could then introduce the arcade stitch on a flat landing or a leveled playing field of the row below. So I'm yet to figure out the math so I can write it down. And if anyone wants to try it, I don't know when that's going to come out, but hopefully somewhere down the way, I can show you a second. This is just a prototype, so maybe a second piece, which is more consolidated, and then let people have at it so that they can enjoy it as well. And with that, I'm going to start talking about my purchases. So the first thing that I want to highlight today was a purchase from Amazon.ca, which is in Canada, and it is from a website that I purchased. I did have a look around at different vendors who sell this, and I chose the one that was the cheapest, and it's a Prym, P-R-Y-M product from Germany, and it's called the Knitting Mill. It makes I-cord. So I have a lot of scraps left over from projects, you know, anything from 5 grams to up to 15 to 20 grams. And a lot of those half hanks that are used, I keep them for bigger projects, but the tail end of like a 15-gram hank or whatever, that's not going to be big enough to do anything sizable. I keep to make amigurumis like this little stuffy friend here, or now I can make I-cord. So I'll show you what it makes and talk a little bit about this product. It cost me around 40 Canadian dollars, and it came to me within, I think, about 6 days, like almost a week to arrive at my door. In with it, you get like a weight, so that when you're using the mill, this helps draw down through gravity and spins around as the knitting mill turns. I'll show you a little bit about which items can be used in it. They suggest that you use a smooth type of yarn where it's either a 4 or 3 weight with no fuzzy bits, because that will, I guess, disturb the pins that come in and out to create the I-cord. And so this is a worsted weight yarn. It's originally a Peyton's Wool Classic, and it created a nice thick style I-cord. Now I can put this in a hoodie if I'm going to drawstring the hoodie, that this is nice and sturdy. And I really like the option of doing that for a drawstring in a hoodie or in a basket or a bag. And here's another version of a worsted weight yarn here. and I could weave that in the edge of a bag and then drawstring it closed, like cinch it up together, and it's nice and sturdy. I really like it, and I have lots of bags of little odds and ends of balls that I don't know what I'm going to be doing with until, you know, I have enough stuffing to make my amigurumis. But now I can also have another option of creating these, I guess they're like scrap stitch busting ideas, and I can make I-cord from it. And this is what I'm doing with this big ball. I'm going to be crocheting up a coil style project bag, and I'm trying to just stick to the 3-weight or the worsted 4 weights. So this is how it looks. And you'll see in here in this contraption, there are 4 pins that rotate when you crank the handle, and they pop up and down, creating the I-cord and feeding the yarn through on this side here. So I'm ready to attach my next scrap bit, and then I will crank the handle and make sure that I'm carefully not tangling the loose ends of the knots that I tie for the next piece, that they're actually going into the center of the I-cord and not sticking out of the cord that's created, because sometimes it can derail your pins, and then the thing will not come out properly at the other end, which is the I-cord bit here. So yeah, I've balled it up so that when I'm cranking it now at this size, oops, and there it goes, that it needs to be able to spin freely, and otherwise it'll jam up and twist kind of like in an awful mess. So you need to let the ball hang and freely twist while the mill is turning around, creating the I-cord. So a little tip there. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm having so much fun with it. Now, my second purchase that I made is also a machine, style knitting machine. And you may have heard of the Addi Express. I got myself an Addi Express, and I purchased it as well on Amazon.ca. It came again in about a week, and it has 46 stitches, or what do they call them? Like needles that go up and down. And I decided to crank out some scarves and hats for donating to an organization here in my area called the Transition House. I'll talk a little bit more about the Transition House, but I want to show you some of the pieces that I'm going to be donating. And I've made a few as well for my family members, because some yarn was donated to me by my sister-in-law, and she found it at a steal, and I've made a couple of scarves for her children. The first yarn that I tried on the Addi Express that I really wanted to find out whether it would take was the Caron Skinny Cake. Classified a 3-weight or a lightweight yarn here. It's 100% acrylic, and I would say it's not a fuzzy yarn. It does have a little fuzz on it, but I wanted to see whether it would be fine with making a scarf. So I wanted to also see how long a full cake would measure on my Addi machine. So it was astounding how long the cake went for. So here it is here in this beautiful, beautiful scarf that it knitted up. And it knits in a tube. So this is kind of double layered, I guess. And it goes through all of these beautiful greens and blues. And I want you to guess how long you feel that the scarf was. And you can write it down in the description box below. I'll come back with the measurement later down the way. But the colorway that I used was called Lime Twist. And I have another cake here. So it was fully used. And what I did with instead of drawing it closed with the ends and cinching it, I did the Kitchener stitch, which made it a nice kind of finish where the two sides were kind of like wrapped around with the style of Kitchener stitching. I just used a needle and a thread. Well, actually I used the yarn itself, but I used a darning needle to do the work to cinch it or seal it closed on either side. So that was the one of the ends, and this here was the next side, just there. And I think what you're seeing here is the start of my threading onto the machine. So this is, I kind of knitted a little bit of 3 or 4 rows from the starting, and then it sort of did this little divot thing here on each side. But I closed it up with the Kitchener stitch. The next thing I decided to make was a hat using the Premier Sweet Rolls Frosty. Now this is a 4-weight yarn. It does have a little bit of a fuzz on it, not too much, 100% acrylic, and I love the colors. This color is called Iced Coffee. So it does have a little bit of the coffee, I don't know about this one, the grayish color, but it does have a coffee brown here, a latte style color, and lots of like white, I guess. And this is how it came out. So there's the Frosty, and there's the color, iced coffee label, and this is how it came out here. So what I had done was I just cranked the tube. I knitted the cone bit so it would have a nice decrease round edge. I didn't cinch it. I actually closed it off with you know, I guess a decrease on a hat that would normally happen. And if I turn it inside out, I've got the other half here also with the decrease. Yeah, so it's fully reversible. It's long enough that you can have it at slouchy, or you could have a brim. It's really nice and thick for cold winter. And I'm thinking about donating the 2 so far that I've created to the transition house. The next few items that I got to share with you, made from the Addi Express, were cranked by my mum. So when I was making the hat that I showed you, Mum came in and she was like spending some time with me in the fun room, the yarn room, and she was like, I'd like to learn how to, you know, thread a piece through and, you know, crank up some goodies while you're knitting or crocheting in the yarn room. So I showed her how to do it, and I already had one started that she jumped in and she was learning how to crank. These were done on some yarn that was gifted to me by my sister-in-law, and I'm re-gifting it back to her as scarves for her 2 daughters. And what we used was the ice cream yarn by Lion Brand in the colorway Tea Berry, and it's a really nice yarn. The yarn thickness is a lightweight 3 or a DK weight yarn. And there's the information on it. And because there were a number of learns with the first scarf that I did with the Caron cake, I knew that I was going to snip it halfway through and make 2, because the length of the other one was super, super long. So here it is in all of these vibrant and fun, playful colors, especially for the 2 nieces. I think it's going to be awesome. It came out super soft and stretchy, and it is, I'm going to say it's my height with a couple of inches left over. So I think it's probably around 6 feet long, and it's going to be a doozy because these 2 little nieces, they're only around, I'm going to say 2 feet tall. No, they're going to be taller than that. Maybe 3 feet for the older daughter, and then maybe 2.5 feet for the youngest. So yeah, I got Mum to do that for me, and she pretty much whipped that up in about 10 minutes. Also, again, I did the Kitchener stitch to close it up so I didn't cinch it tight, and there's the other side there. So one of these will wrap around maybe 3 times on the oldest daughter, and the other one is a little bit shorter, and it is about 5'8", so a couple of inches shorter. This one may wrap around about six times. So they'll be very nice and toasty warm. And again, the Kitchener stitch to close that off. So these are the 2 scarves that will be going to my nieces. The next thing that I had done was I actually showed Mum how to do her own weaving of the yarn through all the pegs and the needles that come up and down on the machine. So I really wanted her to get comfortable with understanding how to set it up. And also later down the way, I was hoping to teach her how to like take it off as well, but we never got to that stage. But I want to show you the next couple of items that she cranked up for me. And these were the yarns that she had bought with her to gift me when she came from Australia. So this is yarn that is, I guess, purchased from a store called Cheap as Chips. And now I'm not sure or familiar with this store, but I understand that it actually has lots of different things inside of it. So maybe it's like a dollar store here in Canada. But this is the yarn that they were selling. It's called Mali Knitting Yarn, and this colorway is called Chalk Orange Multi. It is, I believe it's 100% acrylic. Yeah, it says machine washable. It's 8-ply, so 8-ply I believe is a DK weight yarn, 100 grams, and in that you get, it doesn't say how many meters or yardage in there, but I'm going to guess it's around maybe 200 meters, maybe 280 meters, I think. I'm not sure. But it does have a very microfiberish feel, and it does have a lot of stretch. Now, Mum said a little bit of a kind of a direction on pricing here that she purchased it for was around $5, got her 5 balls. So I think maybe it's $1. I'm not sure whether I heard that correctly, but it's quite an affordable yarn. And we crank some up on the knitting machine and they turned out really nicely. So this is a really nice color. It's one of my favorite colorways of the bunch that she had purchased for me. And here's another one here. It's called Chalk Banana Multi. They're suggesting here to use a 4mm set of knitting needles, but also you could crochet with it, perhaps using a 4.5 or a 5mm crochet hook as well. So really nice and squishy yarn, and this one's quite a colorful one. It is called Candy Corner. So that's the type of twist on it. It's, I'm going to say, a very average, like maybe a medium twist, and it is quite a stretchy yarn as well. So yeah, it has that microfiberish type feel. I'm going to say it is a little scratchy. I'm going to say it's not the softest yarn, but you could wear this as a hat. It could work as a scarf as well, but I would say maybe after washing it, it might soften up a little bit more. Yeah. So the softness level is probably a average, like I'm going to say a 2.5 out of 5 for softness. And here was the first one that Mum chose to crank up on the machine. And it is in this beautiful kind of pastel-y purple mauve, and I'm going to say it's like a peachy pink color. And the colorway is called Milkshake Multi. Really, really nice. Nice job that she did there. And all I did was I did the decreasing at the top. I believe this one, when I turn it inside out, I actually just, no, I did the decrease as well. There it is. And again, it could be a slouchy hat for a little kid, or extra warmth for the ears with a cuff. So quite a bouncy and stretchy yarn. The next one here was this blues and kind of like a white, and this one is called baby boy multi, not to be like particular on the sexes, because this could be unisex. But again, this one is decreased, and I believe on this one I cinched it just because I didn't know what a cinched one would look like. So this one was cinched at the top, and I think from here on in, when I do these hats, I don't need to knit them as a decrease. I can just cinch them, and they just look equally as pretty as the knitted decreased version. Yeah. There we go again, another hat for donation. So that is all of the Addi Express things that I've got to show that are finished. And I am doing another test here that I'll show you. And it is a different yarn. What is the yarn called? I'll just go and find the label. I'll be back in just a moment. So I found the yarn, and I purchased 2 balls of this that I wanted to try on the Addi machine. Here it is here. It was purchased from Michael's, and they were selling this off for $5. I believe in the past they were, oh, there we go. The Canadian price tag there is $11.99. So they were selling it off for $5 and clearancing it out because it was a seasonal yarn, and it is called Eco Cozy Watercolors by Loops and Thread. So Loops and Thread is Michael's home brand, and I love the colors. It variegates all through these autumnal colors, and it has a fuzzy quality to it. It does rove. It is a super bulky number 6. This yarn you need to hand wash and lay flat to dry, and they're suggesting here 9mm crochet hook or a 12.75mm set of knitting needles. Now that's a big change up there of what I'm used to seeing on a label for crochet and knitting, just the distance between what they're suggesting on either side. What else can I tell you? Okay, this ball is 150 grams and it gives me 133 meters or 145 yards. And the color is called Sunrise. So really nice color. It's quite a nice soft yarn. I could say that you could, put this against your skin with no undergarments required. Hopefully when you wash it, it gets a little bit softer. So I'm going to give it around a 3.5 out of 5 for softness, 5 being the softest in the scale. And yeah, it is made out of recycled plastic. What's the manufacturer? Let me take a look. Who makes this? Oh, it says here it's 100% polyester, recycled polyester, and it's made in China. So let's take a look at how the Addi handles it. It did pretty well. I mean, there was no drop stitches and it didn't jump off the tracks. It was fine. It handled a super bulky 6 fine. And this is how it came out. Now, this is the full ball. What I'm planning to do with this is to knit the ribbing edge. So I might even add a few more stitches onto it because it does feel a bit tight. And I'm not going to be doubling up in this. I'm not going to close it off. I'm actually just having the one ring that will go around the person's head, and I will be doing a 1x1 or a 2x2 ribbing. Now I'm going to cut this. I'm going to put 2 lifelines in and cut the 2 in half like this. I'm going to cut in half, and I'll make another hat. So I'll close it off with a decrease, and I'll close the other side off with a decrease, and then knit my ribbing on this bottom side, and I'll have 2 hats out of the one ball. And I got Mum to leave me a whole bunch of yarn on either end so that I can do the ribbed brim. And yeah, I think that will give me about 2 inches of rib brim, and then I will just use the second ball to close off the hat. So I think out of 2 balls I might get 3 hats out of that. Just thinking on how much I need from this ball to create the crowns and the decreases on the 2 hats that will be in here. If that makes any sense. I'll show you as I go along because I'm probably not describing it very well. So my Addi was around 340 Canadian dollars that I purchased from Amazon.ca. I have seen them being sold from Hirschner's. The timing of Hirschner's and that it's American currency with a discount that I saw was probably the cheapest was $240. When you translate that into Canadian dollars, that's probably closer to $300. So with the shipping that needed to come from Hirschner's, it probably would have cost me $340 as well, buying it from Hirschner's. So I thought, let's just cut out the long wait where I'd be waiting for 2 weeks to get across the border and then possibly paying for the taxes and duties on that. So I thought just buy Amazon.ca because they're kind of around the same value. So Mum and I in the yarn room had so much fun. We were teaching each other things. I learned so much from my mum that I did not know about because she told me that she used to knit when I was really, really small. Now, I had no idea that Mum could knit. And she said, I want a set of needles, give me some yarn, I want to see whether I remember it. So just like riding a bike, Mum got up there and she was knitting away. I want to show you some wonderful things that she came up with. She wanted to try different stitch works and patterning of stitch work so that she could remember and recall some of the things that she got up to when she was knitting way back when I was a little toddler. And I'm going to show you what she knitted. She started off with a ribbing face cloth, and I gave her some yarn, and she had done a 2x2 ribbing. Now, I just gave her my best needles that I could possibly think of giving her, the Chargu stainless steel, so that she would have a nice experience. My aim was to get her hooked again on knitting and she could go home and start her own little yarn collection. I'm not sure whether she's going to run with that, but she had fun knitting these things up. And I had given her this yarn here, which is the Re-Up yarn from Lion brand. And it is classified a number 4 or worsted weight yarn, and it's 100% cotton from recycled cotton. And the colorway is orange. So she started off with using this yarn. And I think she did a fabulous job. I was watching her in awe. She has a different way of casting on than I do. She uses her needles without her fingers to cast on. And there's a multitude of ways of casting on. So she taught me a new way of casting on. And it was a little looser. And she found a way of making it a bit tighter when she cast it on in consecutive pieces that I'm going to show you. So a face washcloth, which I am going to keep at home because my mum made it for me, and me and hubby will share them. The second one that she did was just plain, this is the stockinette stitch or the stocking stitch. And she cast it on again here. It was quite loose, but it's a face washcloth, so really it doesn't matter to me as long as it holds together. And she did not drop any stitches, and she turned her work really nicely and neat corners. Yeah, so the other side is just the reverse stockinette. So yeah, wonderful piece there for us to use when we're either in the kitchen and I need a dishcloth, or in the bathroom and I need a face washcloth. The next stitch that she wanted to try was a seed stitch. So she had ran out of the orange yarn at this point, and she wanted to try a different color. So she did the seed stitch, and she enjoyed using a different technique to cast on. So this is her cast on edge here. Very, very neat. This one has really good texture because of the seed stitch. It's quite bumpy, so that's great for washing. And the new yarn here is the, excuse me while I reach off camera here to get the yarn. It's the sheep cheese. I'm going to say that wrong. Sheep's Callista yarn. Now, Shipshi's does not use the color names, they have numbers, and this one is 247. So it's a nice blue color. Yeah, and this one here was a 4-weight as well, and it was 100% double gauzed or gauzed cotton. I don't know what kind of cotton that is, double gauzed, just down here. There. So yeah, she did this one, and then she wanted to do a bit of a border. So this one is the seed stitch, but then the border is in garter, so it alternates between knits and purl rows, and that was the one that she liked the most. And again, she finished up this shipchis in the darker blue color, and I gave her another yarn from Lion Brand's Re-Up, and this one is the same as the orange yarn. It's 100% recycled cotton, and the colorway was called Aqua. So those are the 4 that she had done while she was here in the yarn room, as well as downstairs when we're watching movies. So she made these 4 wonderful washcloths for us. I absolutely treasure these. And yeah, I have a fun little video to show you of Mum cranking on the machine, the Addi machine, and she said it was fine for me to share it with you. So here it is here, and I'll be back after this. Oh, my mum, she's such a hard worker. She was cranking up those 2 scarves for my nieces, and you may have seen at the end of the clip, there's like this massive tangled ball that is going towards the Addi Express. That took us around 20 minutes to unravel, but every bit of yarn was used up after untangling it in those scarves. That brings us to my next little story that I've got to tell about what we got up to with our folks when they were here. We took a trip down to Victoria. Now, before I get into the Butchart Gardens and talking about the excursion to the gardens, which were breathtaking and the perfect time of year for lots of flowers, I made a trip to a yarn store in Victoria on Douglas Road called The Beehive. Now, they have a lot of high-end yarns that I would love to have in my stash, but you know, the bank balance, it wasn't, I couldn't afford them. So I looked in the clearance bin, and I looked in some of the sales that they were having, and I got myself a few things that I want to share with you. So here's one of the books that was discounted, called The Simple Shapes Pure Wool Worsted by Rowan, and it has lots of different pullovers and vests. I think there is cardigans in there as well, and I want to make 2 of these designs. So I've purchased some yarn from Little Knits that I'm going to make a cardigan with, and I might do some tweaking here and there on some of the finds that I have in this found in this pattern, but the book is amazingly well crafted. It has the photographs first up, so that's one of the cardigans that I want to make. And this is a hoodie that I want to make as well. The rest are so not really to my taste, but a really well illustrated book, as well as the clear pattern, and it only cost me $5.98. So that was a good find, I felt. The next thing that I purchased was in a clearance bin, and it's called Drops Air Unicolor. It was reduced down to $6.95. The color here, I believe, is just a number as well. It says 34. So it's in this kind of pinkish color. I really like it. It's so soft and delicate. It is a chain spun yarn, so it's quite a airy yarn, as the name suggests. It is drops air, and it is quite light. So I think one of these will do me nice as a hat. So I'm thinking of doing some sort of maybe cabling, just to see how a cable works in this kind of fuzzy yarn. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the yarn. It is made in the EU, so the European Union. And what else can I tell you? What else does it say? There's not much on here. Okay, needle and hook size. It is 5mm needle or hook. The weight of the yarn is, I'm going to guess, because I don't know, I can't see where the weight classification is, but I'm going to say it's a 3 weight. Maybe with the halo they might say it's 4, but I'm going to say 3 weight, and it is 50 grams, which gives me 150 meters or 164 yards. The contents is 65% alpaca, 28% polyamide, and 7% wool. It is very soft, and I would wear this against my skin with no undergarments required at all. So very nice color there, and I can't wait to try it. The next yarn that I purchased were 2 hanks of Concept by Katja. So I don't think I've ever tried a Katja yarn before, but look at those colors. It's like almost a raspberry type rusty red. I love it so much, and it's so super duper soft. It has a cold touch to it as well, and a little bit of a halo that didn't quite dye the same color as the main body. So you can really see the strands of the halo being slightly lighter in color. Now the color here is 302. And what can I tell you about this yarn? The colorway might be called Apoquina. I'm so sorry, I don't know what that word is. It is made in Barcelona, Spain. There. And I think it might be a fingering weight yarn or a sport weight. It's between a fingering weight and a sport weight yarn. Now they're suggesting here to use a 2 to 2.5mm set of knitting needles, or a 2.5 to 3mm crochet hook. So quite a fine crochet hook and knitting needle. You get 100 grams in these hanks. It gives me 360 meters or 393 yards. So I'm going to say that's probably more of a sport weight, just from the meterage that you get in there. And what else can I tell you? It's 75% alpaca, 25% polyamide, and that's it. Yeah. Care instructions. It says here I'm going to say hand wash, and no tumble drying, just lay flat to dry. Yep. Really super duper soft, and what a lovely color that is. I got 2 hanks because I'm thinking they might make actually a nice shawl or wrap, and if I have the patience, I might pair them with another knit crate variety of yarn in a similar weight, and it's a brown color, and I'm thinking of maybe if I have the patience I could do a pullover or some type of sweater color work. So I'm going to keep those until I come up with a plan on what to use them for. The price tag on the Butchart yarn were $15.57, so not too bad for such a really soft and luxurious yarn. This one here is a new to me yarn as well, so I'm really getting a lot of new yarns that I couldn't find anywhere else, and this one is called Bell, and it's superwash and nylon, so 80% superwash, 20% nylon, 100 grams, which gives me 354 meters or 387 yards. It's a rated number 1 fingering weight, and they're suggesting here for a 2.5 to 3.5 millimeter set of knitting needles, probably the same I would say in a crochet hook, maybe around a 3 to 4 millimeter crochet hook to get that nice lovely drape. Now this is called Pigeon, the colorway, and it was $31.50. Really, really soft. And the reason why I picked this one out was because it has a nice neutral base, but in that are these wonderful wild speckles of color. And I thought that would look nice, especially like if I'm wanting to do color work with a Stephen West style, maybe Vertices Unite, that would add a bit of pizzazz to a neutral. I love it, love it, love it. Super duper soft. And that was the only purchases that I made when I went to visit the beehive. Now that the yarny goodness is out the way, I've got nothing more to show you in the way of like different yarns that I purchased or what I cranked on machines or what my mum had made. So I want to talk to you about an excursion that me and my folks and Chad went down to in Victoria. This was a wonderful trip. We spent 2 days there. We stayed with Chad's cousins and they treated us so well. We didn't want to leave. So I want to say a heartfelt thank you to the cousins that hosted us and treated us so well. We went to the Butchart Gardens. It's a very well-known garden for any nature lover who knows about gardens around the world. And this Butchart Gardens, from the original owners who had purchased some land, and it was a quarry. There was no established plants in this flattened quarry. It was just a mound of dirt. They called it the Sunken Garden. Just breathtaking. And we were timing it well, unintentionally, to see a lot of the blooms, because every season when you go there, there is something different with the garden. There might be rhododendrons at a certain time of year that are out. There might be roses. There might be other flowering plants showing their glory in that when you go visit. So each visit will be different. For us, we had some wonderful blooms that were out, but also some later blooms that were out later this year. So we got almost double treated with some things that happened to time in well with us and some that were unexpectedly late. And so for us, we got to see dahlias as big as dinner plates, just delightful. And we got to see marigolds. There was stragglers in the last few days of lilies, which is my favorite flower. And they had the water lilies as well. The back of the quarry, there is kind of like a water feature, and it's deep down in a reservoir, and you see it being sprayed up. It's called the Ross Fountain, and the timing of it and how they've orchestrated and curated the water features was just breathtaking. That's where we stayed for a while taking photos, and you'll see all of this in the video clips that I'm going to add towards the end. Now, to date, they're still building different gardens that are around. I think one of the editions that they had was called the Japanese garden. Equally beautiful. They're still constructing a lot of these garden bits. There was a iron dragon in a fountain, which was delightful. Hence, like the festive dragon, I do have a kinship with dragons, so I really enjoyed that fountain. And yeah, we spent about 2.5 hours there. You probably need about that much time if you're wanting to look around the whole garden grounds. We rode on a carousel, which I think might be an original carousel, because all of the fixtures, like the animals that you sit on and the mirrors and all the garnish around the carousel, look like it was authentic and vintage style. So I think it is a kind of a long standing carousel and it's operational. So we paid our $2 and we rode it, and it was a lot of fun. So that catches you up on everything for the week. I'm going to be talking about excursions with my folks over the next course of a couple of videos. So I hope that you'll stick around and enjoy those. And just to recap, the full cake here of Caron Skinny Cake in the colorway Lime Twist, the cranked version of it out on the Addi machine, it was 10 feet long from end to end, using up a whole cake. So if you guessed 10 feet, you were spot on. Super long scarf. Now I'm going to drape it for the next video around my form here, Hank, and he'll be showing you just how many times it wraps around his neck. All right, and with that, I'll catch you next week. I hope you have a great week. I'll see you then. Bye.